Okay, good afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us today for our community update. I believe this is week 4 of our community updates. Hopefully these are valuable for everyone as we move forward throughout the summer and look to transitioning into a new school year here in the next couple months. Today we publicized that our intent or our purpose is to do a thought exchange to gather ideas from the community on next steps or action steps for our diversity council moving forward. But before I do that, before we jump into that, I want to take just a minute to reflect on the public comments that were made during Monday night's board meeting. And in case you are not aware, we had several people come and speak during our public portion of the board meeting. And I would say the main content of that were individuals reflecting on either personal experiences as students or as their parents speaking on behalf of their children, experiences with racism or discrimination that took place in Midlothian ISD schools. And so, first of all, I want to say thank you to those who submitted comments. Many submitted comments that were read by our board president, Mr. Sanders. And then many of you came to speak, and many of you stayed till the end of the meeting, which ended very early in the morning that night. But want to thank you for doing that and making us aware of what's going on in our district. The stories that were shared I guess just reflecting on that for me were very much heartbreaking, but more importantly, they're unacceptable. And so as a public educator, obviously I've committed my life to this profession, and our job is to serve all children. And I can honestly say I was incredibly saddened by the experiences that were described that night by many families in this district. Ultimately, it is my responsibility to ensure that each of our kids are safe. And so I can't even put myself in the shoes of our kids to imagine how our students or families felt when they were demeaned in the manner that they described with derogatory statements and other things that were described to us. So as the superintendent of Midlothian ISD, I want you to know that I am incredibly sorry that those have been your experiences, whether those were recently or years ago as described by some. And then I'm certain, those are the ones that came forward that shared their experiences. So I'm certain that there are many of you that probably have had similar experiences. I hope not many, but I would assume there are some that did not come forward as well. So I want you to know from me personally that I'm not going to tolerate or stand for any child or for any parent or staff member to be treated in a way that is less than included, respected, and supported. So we're moving forward, and there will be zero tolerance on racism and discrimination in Midlothian ISD. Last week, as you'll recall, I shared our cultural proficiency efforts, and we talked about the fact that those started about 2 years ago. We talked about our diversity council, which that group started meeting back in the fall of this past school year. So that's only been in place for a few years. I can say that I'd hoped that we would have made more progress with that effort, with our cultural proficiency effort, as well as our diversity council. I think we're a little bit better off than where we started, but obviously listening to the stories from Monday night, we still have a lot of work to do. There's no doubt about it. As a school district, we have a lot of work to do. In fact, after Monday night, we had an opportunity to meet with our diversity council online, and they shared similar, feelings. As we met with them that day, there was a lot of frustration, there was sadness, disappointment. Some of those members even, like happened Monday night, many of those got emotional. And I think when I reflect back on Monday night, probably the thing that hit me the hardest was we had several young people that spoke. We had some that had just recently graduated, and we had a couple of individuals that were current students. And to see them, the emotion that they had talking about the way they had been treated, it was very clear that we have some work to do. So what I took away from that diversity council, because many of them had listened that night or had been part of that, was that we have to take action. The tone of that committee was about not necessarily cultural proficiency, which has been kind of the overarching theme in the past, which is about inclusiveness for everyone, religions, acceptance, and the way we treat each other. We narrowed it down and talked about the fact that we've got to take action towards racism and discrimination, and that needs to be our our driving force moving forward, at least here in the short term with that diversity council. So I can assure you that we have an incredible sense of urgency. The council actually will begin action team work before we start the 2021 school year. So we're committed. Some of these things came up Monday night. We are committed to reviewing our student code of conduct. We're going to review our student dress code. We're going to look at our employee handbooks and outline, and then also we're going to look at outlining trainings for staff for this coming school year to ensure that it's equitable and that it honors diversity and the cultures represented in our classrooms. Another topic that's come up over the last 2 or 3 days is we have to audit our curriculum for cultural responsiveness, biases, and racism. And so we're committed to doing that prior to this school year. Now the audit may flow into this school year, but the council members, the diversity council members, are already in the process of signing up to serve on action teams that will begin the work on some of those items that I just mentioned, as well as some other items that we will probably gain from today, as well as conversations that we have over the next week or two. So we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your suggestions of how we need to move forward as a district, the actions that we need to put in place to ensure that every child feels safe in our classroom. So I want you to take your time today to share your ideas. I want you to encourage your friends and neighbors and the MISD community to participate, because this will remain open. We're going to record this update. We'll share it in an email to parents after this. So if they miss, they can still go in and fill in ideas and thoughts as we go throughout this. And so for those of you that have not participated in this in the past, we have representatives from Thought Exchange that will be here to facilitate and guide the conversation. All thoughts will be processed. You have an opportunity to go in and rate those as to priorities for the district as far as how we should take action on that. So I'm going to turn it over to John and Laura. John and Laura have been with us a couple of times on this, and they are our representatives, our Thought Exchange partners. So at this time, I believe, John, you're going to jump in there first, and I will let you take over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ledbetter. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm going to lead you all into the Thought Exchange, as Dr. Ledbetter said, and you're going to have an opportunity to share your thoughts on this important topic. So I'm going to share my screen with you all in just a moment, but really what you're going to have an opportunity to do is answer this open-ended question around the future of the MISD's Diversity Council work, what you think is top of mind, and you'll be able to share as many ideas and thoughts as you wish. And all responses into the Thought Exchange are confidential. And in addition to sharing your thoughts, it's really important to view the thoughts of other people in the conversation and assign a star rating to them. So I am just about to share my screen here in just a moment and invite you all into the exchange. So you should all be able to see this QR code that's come up on the screen just now, and that'll allow you to enter the exchange. Just get out your cell phone, scan that QR code that will bring you right into the conversation, or you can participate by browsing to tejoin.com and entering this 9-digit code. And again, we'll be getting you to answer this question in light of recent events. What's top of mind by you for the future of work of the MISD Diversity Council? And the conversation is going to get very silent right here as everyone's participating in the background, and we'll just all be comfortable with the silence, and I'll bring you all back in a few minutes once we've all had a chance to participate. And for those of you joining us on Facebook Live, I believe there is a link also being posted there as well. I do apologize, my screen's jumping around a little bit here. I'm trying to keep it on the QR code for you all for a moment. Just about a third of the way through the exchange here, and we have over 100 participants in the conversation. If you haven't been able to join yet, you can go to tejoin.com and enter the 9-digit code that is in the upper left-hand side of the screen. Otherwise, you may share as many thoughts as you wish. And please ensure you rate as many thoughts of others as you can. Just over halfway through this exchange, and there's great participation. Please keep sharing your thoughts and rating thoughts of others. Then we'll take up the exchange in a few minutes. Just a minute or so left. Get those last thoughts and ratings in, and then we will close out the exchange. Last 30 seconds here. All right, I am going to temporarily pause this exchange just so we can all focus on the following conversation. We'll plan to reopen this exchange at the end of this broadcast, so you can all go back in and continue to contribute thoughts. But for now, let's look at some of the top thoughts that came top of mind for everyone in the conversation. And thank you everyone for participating. And we'll have a little bit of a conversation about some of these here. So the thought that came to the very top, I'm just going to highlight it here, front and center, was create action sooner than later. Show our students and staff they have a safe place to belong at MISD.
So John, I'll jump in there. I guess you're talking to me, right?
Yeah. Dr. Ledbetter, yes, of course. Just wanted to hear your thoughts and comments on that.
Okay, so on that one, I think hopefully that came out in my opening remarks, that is something that we are absolutely focused on. I think, we understand the sense of urgency to get some things done. We want our students and staff to feel that they have a safe place, as well as our parents. And so we are committed to acting on several of the items that were mentioned previously, with addressing our handbooks, addressing our curriculum, addressing our code of conduct, dress code, looking at a zero tolerance policy that perhaps we can put in place and bring back to our board. So we are definitely moving forward with action being the priority even prior to the start of the school year, so that we can demonstrate that we are taking this seriously and that our kids can feel safe.
All right. That's great. And I know absolutely those action-oriented goals are prime for the Diversity Council as well. And the next thought that came up here on the topic of empathy, hearing the perspectives and experiences of different cultures creates more empathy and understanding than a list of rules. Understanding the why empowers the change.
Yeah, and on that one, I would say it goes back to, our responsibility as a district is to educate, and that means educating our staff, educating our students. And so part of what has come up over the last few days is really looking at our training process and the conversations that we're having, helping our teachers understand the varying perspectives. And so once again, from an action standpoint, we are committed to making sure that our staff, our teachers, our administrators are all aware and have an open mind and open heart to understand the impact that we're having on a daily basis, and perhaps some of the negative things that are happening, either consciously or unconsciously. We have to make people aware of that. And so absolutely, under the statement there at the bottom, that understanding the why empowers the change. And I think ultimately that's our responsibility, my responsibility, to make sure that our staff understands that, so that we're interacting with our kids in the proper manner.
All right. The next thought in the list here I wanted to touch on, keeping the utmost integrity of racial equality and respect within district leadership. We cannot demonstrate to any student through inaction that racism is accepted. Kids need to know that they are all protected and cherished.
Absolutely. And I think, it kind of goes back to my statements at the beginning. I mean, it will not be tolerated. They need to know that they're all safe, that they're protected. And you say within district leadership, and I absolutely agree with that. And once again, I think it goes back to making sure from a training standpoint that our principals, that our assistant principals, and even our staff understand perspectives. And it goes back to that empathy portion as well, so that we understand, perhaps once again, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, the impact that our words and our actions can have on our kids. And so making sure that we are aware of that, so that all kids feel safe. I mean, ultimately that is that's our priority. The safety and security of our kids is a priority. And this is a huge piece of that safety aspect, that they feel safe in our classrooms to interact, to have conversations, and they love going to school. And so we're committed to that.
That's great. So one I'm seeing down here that's actually important is on kind of, I guess discipline and consequences. And it says students who harass or threaten other students need consequences. Often the offender comes back and does it again, and victims don't report it because of harassment they get.
Well, and that has to stop. I mean, ultimately we have to put some systems in place where we talk about a zero tolerance policy. I mean, obviously we will evaluate our discipline, like we mentioned, our code of conduct, and look at if it's racial or discriminatory, what those offenses, the consequences or the outcomes are going to be. Obviously, we have to educate the students along with that. And then also, the fact that statement, if they don't report it because of the harassment that they get, that has to be addressed as well. I mean, that's something that we have to have extreme consequences in place. At the same time, conversations that I've had with others, we need an opportunity for students who are experiencing either racism, discrimination, that they have an opportunity to report that in a manner that is anonymous or not blatant. And we've talked about, in fact, had a conversation this morning about some type of reporting process, just like we do with our bullying, just like we do with any other type of item, to really be explicit with the fact that if you're experiencing anything related to this, that you have a way you can report that anonymously and it will be addressed.
All right. Something that you touched on a little bit earlier, but maybe you can elaborate on just a little more in here, is on the training piece. Administrators, teachers, and staff need to consistently and continually be trained in areas of diversity and inclusion. Midlothian is becoming more diverse, but the staff remains the same. If that trend continues, the staff needs to learn how to interact and teach.
Absolutely. I mean, the statement says it all. I think because we are becoming more diverse, we have to be committed. From a hiring standpoint, I know that's not really this topic, but it did come up Monday night, is that we need to be more diverse in our makeup of our staff. And so we will look at what we can put in place to ensure that we are adding diversity to our staff, so that our kids have that, I guess, we hear it all the time. There's not people that look like certain groups. And so we definitely want to add that diversity, and we want to have somebody that they trust, that they can go to, and build relationships with. And I hope they can do that with all of our staff. But going back to the point at the beginning, I mean, we obviously need to be consistent with our training in the areas of diversity and inclusion. So we're looking at what can we do moving forward to ensure that it's an ongoing process. We can't do an hour training at the beginning of the school year and expect that to be enough. It's got to be ongoing. It's got to become what we do. It's got to become who we are as a district. And so it's something that we will begin to explore moving into this year, is what we can do differently than we've done in the past. Because what we've done in the past, based on the comments that were shared Monday night, obviously is not effective.
Yeah. And as you say, this is an ongoing process, and it's not something that can be just solved with one quick training session. So absolutely, it's the work that needs to continue. And I think there's a lot of thoughts in here around that kind of making sure that students feel safe, being acceptance of other races and backgrounds. And I think there's so many comments in here, and obviously we're not going to be able to even speak to a large portion of them, but we're going to reopen this exchange once we close this broadcast again, like I said, so you'll all be able to go back in and view all the thoughts of others and assign that star rating so we can see what's important to the community. But maybe we'll just close off this last portion of discussing them with this thought that's come up here on really wanting to see that clear statement from the district and info. Schools about zero tolerance for racism, discrimination, and behavior words that reflect racism and discrimination. We have to face it, name it, and then move forward with actions that will help us remove the implicit and explicit biases and discriminatory elements.
And I think this has been made clear by individuals that we've spoken with and those that have talked about it moving forward. And you will have that. I hope that just in my conversations this week and last week, there is zero tolerance for racism and discrimination. And whether that's been articulated appropriately, accurately in the past, it will be moving forward. We'll look at bringing some type of zero tolerance, race equity resolution to our board. We're going to look at, as I mentioned before, we will look at it within our student handbooks and our employee handbooks. I hope that's the message I want to make very clear, is that we've accepted that there are some things we need to do better with respect to this. We do want to move forward with zero tolerance related to this. And we're going to put actions in place to make sure, at least in the short term, that we make the message clear to our students and staff. But then also moving forward, we will look at long-term things, as I mentioned, like the audit of our curriculum. We'll look at our hiring practices. These are things that we're committed to doing. And I think it's been, like I mentioned, it was made very clear to me with comments that I've heard over the last few days that we've got to do some things differently, and we're committed to doing that. And so I hope everybody realizes that we're facing it. We know that there's some racism, and so we're willing to take that on up front, make it a priority, and get better and serving our kids in a better way so that all kids feel safe. Our priority is to make sure that every kid, every parent that walks into our building feels safe. And I commit to each one of you that we're going to do that over the next few months and years. I know that this is probably not something we're going to solve overnight. It's going to be something that takes time, and we're going to put actions in place that we can do now, and then we'll look at things that we can do long term. So I think at this point, that's really the message that I hope everybody hears, is that we're going to move forward with this, and we're going to get better. We will get better as a district, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks very much for responding to some of these, Dr. Ledbetter. And as I said, we're going to reopen this exchange so you all can go back in and continue to contribute to the conversation. I believe the exchange will keep it open for a few more days. But I think that concludes this portion of the session. I'm going to kick it back to you, Dr. Ledbetter. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just to reiterate what John said, we want your thoughts. We're going to use this to guide our conversation with our diversity council, which will meet again next, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. We already have a list of action items that we're working on, so we'll begin to formulate a plan with timelines moving forward. And at the latest, we'll have something for our board at the July board meeting, kind of an action plan moving forward with hopefully some dates and time frames for each of these. And then we'll have some of that will probably be some research that we're going to have to do moving forward. But I hope everyone understands kind of the direction of the district at this point. Understands where we're coming from, that this is unacceptable, and we are going to have zero tolerance related to this. We know we have some challenges moving forward, but we're committed to correcting anything that's going on within the district. So thank you very much for joining us again today, and we will do this again next week on Thursday at 12:30, and we'll probably have a little bit different topic. I know we're going to receive some information next week from our Commissioner of Education related to how we can re-enter the school year and what schools will look like. And so we'll begin to have a better feel for what school might look like in the fall with respect to COVID and with respect to whether it's going to be online, blended learning, face-to-face. And so we'll be sharing some ideas hopefully next Thursday around that topic as well. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.